In this video, I want to talk to you guys about what interview questions you need to ask in order to find out if a rep is going to be A, a good fit and have a high likelihood to succeed, and B, bring you the most potential revenue and profit to your business. My name is Dylan Reeve, owner of Headhunt Talent Group. The first thing that you always want to start with is the highest predictor of success is having the past experience or track record. So diving into someone's past experiences in sales, in your industry, in this type of role, working these types of leads, everything like that is going to give you the highest prediction as to whether or not this person will be successful. That is 10 times out of 10. Now, from that point, there's some people who aren't going to have any sort of, directly relevant experience. And that's when you want to go less into, okay, tell me about your processes and tell me about your results, into more belief and trait-based questions that are going to indicate someone has a high likelihood of succeeding. So the first and foremost by far in sales is going to be work ethic. That's something that is required in 99% of sales positions. And to find out about someone's work ethic, you don't want to, again, ask, are you a hard worker or something like that, but rather you want to ask about their experiences working hard. So what have they accomplished in the past, whether or not it have anything to do with sales, and what did they have to do in order to accomplish that? Now, that also shows someone's ability to achieve goals, someone's ability to be coachable, make progress, hold themselves accountable, etc. So that's a great way to feel out really all of their traits and all of the beliefs that are going to be important to whether or not they actually end up becoming successful. So one, again, relevant experience. Two is, again, belief in trait-based questions, asking about things that they have previously accomplished, whether or not they've been relevant to sales or your opportunity whatsoever. Now, the reason that's important is if you take, for example, someone's past experience in athletics. Let's say they, made it all the way to the D1 level, were a starter 3-4 years. Those types of traits or those types of experiences or accomplishments indicate a lot of things, and the vast majority of green flags that you would need to see in order to indicate that this person is going to be successful. Now, getting into the other half of this, which is their ability to make you revenue, and let alone whether or not they're actually going to succeed and be able to support themselves, is first and foremost what their drive and what their desire to close their current gap between where they are and where they want to be currently looks like. Now, the reason that is super important is because let's take a scenario where someone has a ton of experience and is already super successful in exactly what you need, and okay, this person's going to crush it 100%. Well, if this person is already currently successful in the same line of work that you're in, odds are the pay that they're going to get with you versus where they're currently at, or how the role looks with you versus where they're currently at, isn't drastically different. So when it comes to the, for lack of a better term, change that they need to make and that they need to endure, they're not going to, a lot of the time, have the wherewithal, have the drive, have the whatever you want to call it, to actually see through that change and come out successful on the other side. And that's because motivation or action comes from a gap. It's a gap between where you're currently at and where you want to be. And if that's a very small gap because your opportunity isn't very different, well, any sort of resistance that comes in between is going to make it very unlikely that the person makes it to the other side. So just because someone has a ton of success in something very similar doesn't mean they're going to apply that same success to your business. And that is something you want to be very cautious of, which is oftentimes why I hear of partners or clients having bad experiences hiring people that are already successful within their space. Now, on the other half of that, there are people that are unsuccessful. And for some of them, they quite honestly don't have it bad enough, whether it's a perception of their current state, whether it's a perception of what they can accomplish or what they really want to accomplish. There is no gap for some people. Some people just don't want that much more, because again, they don't perceive it as they can have a ton more, or B, they don't perceive their current state or current situation or position as bad. So in that scenario, again, just because someone may have accomplished something in the past that could be super relevant and could indicate great signs of this person succeeding, it isn't a 100% thing, because if they don't have that gap currently, then they are going to be in the same situation as the other person, who any sort of resistance that gets in between here is going to push them apart, and they're no longer going to make it through to the other side. So how I would summarize those points are: A, first and foremost, relevant experiences and indication that they have a high likelihood to succeed, but B is going to be their current pain or their current state and how likely they are to bring you that sort of success. Now, the last part of this, I would consider that part 1, part 2, and this would be part 3, is compensation. And getting to the root of what they're looking for, what that gap is going to look like for you to make it wide enough in order for them to make it to the other side, is also very important. Because depending on what your model currently can support and what's currently achievable, you might not be able to widen that gap enough for them to make it through to the other side. And again, it's not because they weren't necessarily willing to change their state, but it's because there wasn't enough value that you were providing. So getting a good idea as to what this person is looking for, what would make them be willing to go through that sort of pain all over again, what would make them be willing to sacrifice what they have now in order for something better, is very important for you to find out and get on the same page of expectations with, because that is very important to not just them succeeding, but your profitability on that person. Because I don't care if someone's going to be extremely successful with me, if I have to give them all the profit, well then, in 9 times out of 10, that's something that's probably not worth doing unless they're bringing over, a major brand, they're bringing a ton of value in some other way where I don't need to profit off them in that way. So those are going to be the 3 most important interview questions. Again, there's no set specific questions that you want to use. It's very much so like sales. You are going to have an actual conversation with the person. You're going to ask questions that you're actually curious about to get to the root of those 3 main concepts, whatever you want to call them, and find out where they lie on that scale. So the questions can be off the fly. The questions, honestly, many of the times are going to sound very similar, but you just want to get to the root of those 3 things so you can clearly evaluate whether or not they'll be a good fit and they're going to be able to help you get what you want out of the situation. So that's all. A super simple video, and hope that helps.